Yes.
I got lots of paper yet. Do you need any more in particular?
I have a lot of papers too. Well, maybe not.
Usually I'm very careful not to do that. You guys tell jokes. And don't volunteer me, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
In Ed's absence, you can call the meeting to order.
There is that too. Where did Ed go?
He misplaced the paper.
He what?
Misplaced the paper.
Oh, okay.
So he's going to find the paper.
Okay.
Seems important.
Yeah.
That looks like more than one piece of paper. Do you want to know what you've been volunteered for?
No, I'll find out soon enough. So it's 6:32. We'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you please rise if you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Andrew Benson. Here. Ruth Groff. Here. Bronwyn Losey.
Here.
Joseph Wetmore.
Here.
Edward Levine.
here. So, it's like the first order of business, as we get through three, is public hearing on local law number 5 of 2023 to override the tax levy limit. Would someone like to make a motion to open? Can everybody hear me, by the way? I'm told my voice is being softer, which is shocking.
I'll move.
Okay?
I'll second.
Good. Any further discussion?
Hang on a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So this is something we do, I guess I have to fill in a minute. This is something we do every year with the tax cap. And in my opinion, I support this because every town's different. I met with a gentleman from Lyle, actually, at my 50th reunion, and they hold the record, I think, for the lowest tax rate in New York State. We're not moving it. But they also have, I think, 900 people in their town. And then you get to a bigger municipality where they may be affected by pandemic, by supply chain, by inflation, and you would have to, so. Like I said, every town, every village is different. And it's up to the elected officials to be sensitive of the constituents' needs of that town and have the courage to say to the governor or whoever else wants to enforce this tax cap, thank you for the offer, but let's first of all pursue what our budget is. And if we have to go over, we will, like last year. But there's been some years, most years we haven't. One year we had to go over because of drainage districts. It was just about stormwater ponds. That was it. But maybe some places don't have stormwater ponds. Anyways. Is it a minute, Joe?
We need to invite the public to speak.
Thank you so much. Okay, so having said all that, does anybody want to take advantage of this public hearing now to voice their concerns at all, or comments? Okay. Someone like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move that. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
So item 5 will be the resolution adopting local law number 5 to override the tax levy limit. Someone like to,
I'll move.
I'll second.
any further discussion?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Ruth Groff,
Yes.
Bronwyn Losey,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. And then item number 6 in your packet, public hearing on village solar major subdivision. I believe this is to set the public hearing.
No, it's to open it.
No, this is the other one.
This is the other open one, thank you. So, would someone like to make,
I'll move.
I'll second.
we are sharp tonight, good. Might be 8:15 this month, so. It won't be down to his record. 7 what?
45 minutes.
Okay, I have Joe and Ruth, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll open up, first of all, any comments from the public? Always a good sign.
You don't want to talk about this one? There's been some confusion online, people thinking this is a solar project. It's been renamed.
Speaking of which, can I give, I have not received any of those emails, even though I'm on that whole trail.
This is, which trail?
The trail, when someone asked, is this another solar project, you said, no, there wasn't. I'm not on that, and I reached out to the Lansing Cares and Concerns to say, am I been bumped for some reason? I'm sure I haven't, but I have not received any of those comments whatsoever.
Oh, I'll talk to Karen.
Thank you. Well, now, having said that, go ahead. I mean, the thing I was going to say is that I think this is the other village, right? This is not the Rocco and Stevenson.
This is the Rocco
Yeah.
Steve.
This is the
Yes.
Rocco.
Okay, there is another one coming up then.
The other one is item 12.
Thank you.
12.
So go ahead.
This is the project on Warren Road, and they're trying to
Yes.
split
Yes.
some of their properties into smaller parcels. And I still have my concern. I don't know if you want me to talk about it now, or if you want me to talk about it after the hearing.
Well, I think the best time to talk about this is when we have a resolution to pass it, right, for discussion.
Okay?
Um,
That's right after this one.
Right, but I've also been following the whole interaction back and forth, and, well, we'll talk about it.
Okay?
I think we've got our minute, so,
Plus.
thank you. Mrs. Johnson. So, someone like to make a motion to close the,
I'll move.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
okay, now is the resolution granting subdivision approval for Village Circle, Village Solar, is PDA for prior approvals and authorization of suing of such plat or map for Lansing Town Code. 270-67B, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move it.
I'll second. Go ahead.
I'll second.
Okay, now, any further discussion?
Yes, I'm still concerned that we've gotten promises to follow their previous requirements that they have not fulfilled. They still haven't built a sidewalk connecting the bus stop to the two buildings that our previous requirement had them do, that they agreed to at the time we asked them to do it. One of them doesn't connect to the building at all, and the other doesn't conform to the requirements of being a concrete sidewalk 4 inches thick. They just painted lines on their driveway.
And this was part of the agreement, you have it, is in writing, this is exactly what.
This is part of town law, yeah.
No, but this is what they, it says specifically what they, I tend to agree with you, Joe. but,
Yeah.
That when you have a PDA, which in many ways is to bypass, it's like forming their own little zone, basically, but it's also to expedite anything within that because it gives you leeway. But on the other hand, a relationship with a business and the town is usually symbiotic back and forth, which means if we ask them to do something, not demand, but ask, and they say, yes, we will, and they don't, what's the word? It becomes problematic.
Mhm.
And at some point, it's like, okay, you said you would do this, and now you're coming back for something else, but you haven't fulfilled the first part. You would think, and how hard is it to do this?
I'm not a construction person, but they agreed to it, and they are construction people. You saw the emails, Rocco and I discussed it 2 years ago, and agreed that these two buildings would be connected to the bus stop with a sidewalk built to the standards that the PDA says sidewalks would be built to. They have not done this yet. So I'm asking that this resolution be amended as per Susan Brock's advice to say that we are not going to sign the plat until that aspect of the PDA has been complied with fully.
How's the rest of the board feel about this?
I think he has a really good point. I totally agree.
It's almost like you, will you, the third time that you will?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or as friends in the sheriff's department say, you ask, then you tell, you force. But the other options are there. I'm a little bit perplexed why they wouldn't have done this. But I think that your reasoning has merit. So do we want to put that amended in? We have the language, I'm sure, Joe, you have it.
I've sent it out a couple of times. Debbie, what do you need from me to
I
put it
need to
in?
have the resolution the way it's supposed to be, I guess. That's what we're
Yes.
voting on. I don't have that.
Yes, sir?
Mark is in the waiting room if you would like him to speak.
Okay.
He's on the other,
This
he's
is
not
the other
on
one.
this topic.
Oh, the other.
He's on the item 12.
My fault.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. So I think we need to have some verbiage.
I don't know, Guy,
Well,
you feel
Guy's
comfortable
not
helping
on-
with it?
Guy's
Nope.
not on this,
Yep,
so-
okay.
Right, no,
It's
no,
not here.
I'm just making a joke. But we need to have some language on there so she
Why
can.
don't you give me a couple of minutes to pull that back up, and I will give you language.
So do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Want to do that?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes,
Because the next one's a presentation.
I will do the best I can.
I gave you the option. All right.
I'm trying to keep you at 40.
You have a pending motion,
Yes.
Yeah.
so
Okay.
you
We
either
need to
have to
do-
withdraw the motion and then remake it once you have the language, wait for the language.
Well, let's
I mean,
withdraw.
I don't want to advise on this matter, but that's pretty basic. You can't.
You're advising on protocol, Connie, which I appreciate.
Yeah, there's a motion pending, so
So
either
I think
address
we
it
can-
or
Why don't we-
withdraw it and then
Why
reconsider.
don't we withdraw and we can revisit this farther down in our meeting house?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, so to withdraw it, you're going to have this first and a second also,
No, just the person.
No, just the people who moved it can withdraw it.
Yeah.
which are,
Which was
I think I did.
Sandra and
Andrew and
Ruth.
Ruth.
okay.
I'll withdraw it. I will as well.
To be continued. Okay, moving on. The next one.
Presentation.
Yep, I'm looking for my information, which I did, which is very, no, it's okay, which is very dear to me, I haven't lost it entirely. Is the Bear Peak Lansing BESS, which stands for Battery Energy Storage System. And this is Mr. Ben Broder, who I had the pleasure of meeting this week, right, Monday.
Thank you.
And anyways, he is going to give a presentation, and do we have copies for the rest of the board on these, or can you?
I do have copies for everyone.
Perfect.
Pass them out.
Perfect, please do, please do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got mine.
Thank you.
So this is just a presentation for right now. Let me set some parameters here because this is the initial phase. And I also want the public to be aware of this, not only the ones that are here, but also the ones who are watching or are privy to this later. So Ben Broder of Bear Peak has been asked to brief the town board on their concept of battery energy storage at the Cayuga operating plant. Battery energy storage is a permitted use in the IR industrial zone, which is where the Cayuga operating plant is located. As it will require site plan approval, the planning board will be conducting the review and has authority over the discretionary permits, not the town board. This presentation is just a courtesy, and as such, communication should be between the board and the Bear Peak. This is not a public hearing. This presentation is limited to Bear Peak's proposal, and all potential impacts, concerns, etc. should be limited to what is directly influenced by the proposal and not the site as whole. Bear Peak themselves do not control the entire Cayuga operating plant and are only planning to utilize a small portion. These guidelines were sent to me by John Zepko, and I'll be happy to forward those to everyone if they like.
That'd be good, thank you.
But this is something that is critical. I know there's a lot of people that are passionate about certain concerns in this town, but there was a process that we go to before they are addressed, and in this case, will be by the planning board. So, on that note, Mr. Broder, would you like to take it? And thank you for coming on such short notice.
Thank you, Supervisor Levine. I really appreciate the invitation to come here and just present this project to the town board here. Just to begin, I just want to introduce Bear Peak Power and myself, and get a little bit into the project. So we're a national solar and energy storage developer headquartered in Denver. I am out of Saratoga Springs, New York, and I've done about 200 megawatts of standalone energy storage projects in New York to this point. This particular project is very exciting because we're able to use and put to use an existing interconnection and substation that was used formerly by the Cayuga coal plant, and be located in an industrial zone as contemplated by the ordinance that the town passed last year. We're going to be working with consultants on this project, obviously. Fisher Associates, they're headquartered in Rochester. They have an office in Ithaca. They'll be providing environmental, civil, those sort of, that kind of support, as well as supporting the seeker and permitting arena while we're presenting the project to the planning board. And we're working with, on the electrical engineering side, a firm called Reynolds Architecture Engineering that has a good amount of experience on these utility scale energy storage projects in New York. This is a 200 megawatt, 4-hour duration battery energy storage system. The footprint of the entire project is only 5.7 acres. It's mainly on already disturbed land at the site of the former Cayuga coal plant. Right now, we have entered into a lease option with the Cayuga operating company for the purpose of developing and ultimately constructing this battery energy storage system. The site plan that we've initially done, and I apologize, I don't have a poster board here, but if you don't mind, I can hold it up here if you can see it.
I think we also have a copy over here, right?
Yes. For the audience. It's right here. This is 5.7 acres. We're going to be connecting in the existing substation switchyard there. The system consists of several battery energy storage containers, which will step up to 115 kilovolts and interconnect at the existing substation. These systems are composed of, at the smallest level, battery cells, which are then they are then put together into modules, which are about the size of about an ice pack, I suppose you could say. Those are then on racks, and then those racks are in stacks. So inside of one of these containment systems, it looks similar to a data center, except instead of computers inside, it's batteries. Inside of each container, there's a battery management system that is monitoring for safety at 24/7, 365, and there's interconnection equipment as well, inverters. The purpose of these systems and why this is a good site is to the following largely the following uses. Basically, they defer costly upgrades to transmission and distribution infrastructure, which instead of being undertaken by the utility and rate-based, are essentially undertaken by us instead. They provide key grid services such as frequency regulation and spinning reserves. They support the integration of renewable energy generators, including solar and wind. They alleviate congestion in the grid, reducing brownouts and blackouts. And smaller systems provide electric bill management and backup power for homes and businesses. Economically, this system will create about 170 construction jobs during construction, about 5 to 10 part-time jobs during operation. Jobs will pay a prevailing wage. We will source materials that we can source locally, such as fencing, gravel, soil. Other equipment will be locally sourced if market conditions do allow. On the property tax and pilot benefits side, it's expected to be $300,000 per year, in addition to a host community agreement that would be for the benefit of the town of Lansing.
So far, so good.
Just a little bit about New York State. New York State is a leader in clean energy jobs. There were over 165,000 clean energy jobs in New York as of 2021. The state has a statewide energy storage target of 6,000 megawatts by 2030, which is the largest in the country. And it is expected that the energy storage sector alone will create 30,000 jobs in New York by 2030. This particular site is located in what is known as an energy community under the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, because it's located on the property of a decommissioned coal facility. So that statute directs or encourages the development of renewable energy projects and energy storage projects into energy communities. And one of the types of energy communities that it defines is being adjacent to a decommissioned coal plant or a coal mine. So really, it's another reason why this is a good site. Just a word on safety and battery storage. We did meet with the fire department earlier with Brad George, just to let him know about the project. Bear Peak works with suppliers to ensure that its systems are built with safety as the #1 priority. We only procure batteries that have performed under what is known as UL 9540A, which is the most stringent testing regime that is applied anywhere in the US or in the world. It requires testing at the cell level, the module level, the rack level, the full installation level. New York's Uniform Code, which will be governing here, contains the most up-to-date requirements for energy storage safety. The systems are equipped with a sophisticated battery management system that automatically detects an anomaly in any single cell at any time and can automatically shut off the system in such a case. Lastly, we will commission a site-specific emergency response plan and site-specific training for the Lansing Fire Department once final equipment selection has been made. As the supervisor mentioned earlier, this project the site plan review is governed by Section 270-35T of the Lansing zoning ordinance, and we'll be required to comply with the special conditions described in that ordinance, in that review. The project will also be subject to seeker review. It will be a coordinated review. It will require negative declaration. And the planning board will be the lead agency most likely in that case. We'll circulate the review to any other potentially involved agencies. And any comments that come back in the course of that review will need to be addressed in order for us to get our site plan approval. Timeline, we're just submitting our interconnection request at the end of this month. We hope to begin on the environmental studies and permitting later in the year. The interconnection process does take about 18 months, so that'll take us into the beginning of 2025, Q1 of 2025. At that time, we'll procure our equipment, apply for our building permit, and then we'll expect to construct and finish the system in Q2 of 2026. And again, this is just a preliminary, just to let you guys know about this project, and so you're not surprised by the project.
No, we can also put this out on the website. This is all public information now. I'll open up to the board, but I also would like to give you some latitude that if there are certain questions that are not appropriate to be answered at this time because of whatever reason, because of the process, I don't know what that process would be, but I'm not here to pin you down because you are a business partner of ours, hopefully. So if the board has any questions at this time, we can start the process. But please keep in mind this will go through the planning board, but also it's always good information for the general public if we have as many questions as possible. So I think, who wants to go first, Joe or Brown?
I imagine mine will be shorter.
That's okay.
And more concise.
That's okay, I'll just sit back.
I'm just wondering, you said it's a 200 megawatt, 4-hour duration. What does that mean?
That means that it will discharge energy at a capacity of 200 megawatts for 4 hours.
For 4 hours. Okay. And,
Okay, if I just may,
yeah.
it could be 100 megawatts for 8 hours. It could, right? It
Correct.
could be, it's 800 megawatts total.
Correct.
Got it.
So if it's 10 megawatts, it could be over so many hours, but that's the whole load is 800 megawatts. So if you're getting 50 at a time, for instance, it could be other, it's not like it's gonna be 200 megawatts, 4 hours, that's it, you're done. If the draw's only 50 megawatts, it could be.
That's kind of the max draw.
Correct.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
the maximum.
Okay.
And if the bar comes back on or whatever happens, or you don't need any more, if you're under those 800, we go back to whatever. Am I close with this?
Yes, that's
Okay.
at a high level.
Yeah.
That's
very
right.
polite.
And,
Yeah.
You're very
that,
gracious.
yeah, and at 200 megawatts is just at roughly enough to power 100,000 homes for 4 hours.
Yep. Okay. And just quickly, the property tax pilot benefits. You said expected $300,000 per year, $300,000. Is that the property tax? What is that?
So that would be a payment in lieu of tax.
Okay, so it's a
contract.
$300,000 pilot. Okay.
Correct, yes, and that's just based on comparables elsewhere in the state for these projects where we've seen
Not a
them
commitment, but just
be-
kind of a best guess.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
where those are in the $1,000 to $1,500 per megawatt range to this point.
Okay, thank
Now,
you.
that also would include, when you say pilot though, that includes the school and the
Right.
county and the town.
Correct, which
Right.
is why we also
There's also a host community.
have the host community agreement there as well.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed that last statement.
Which is why we also, often in the renewable energy industry in New York, there's oftentimes an additional contract with the town itself referred to as a host community agreement, where the purpose of it is to provide an economic benefit to the town to compensate for any theoretical impacts to the town that may be resulting from the project.
Okay.
So, Mr. Broder, we're actually discussing that with CNS Energy Yellow Barn solar factory, which they're putting up right now, or discussing to put up. So we also are talking about a host community agreement with them. So this phrase will not be new much longer in anyone's mouths that want to see what the impacts of the host community is. The thing I like about, though, it goes directly to the town. There is no impacts to school, there's no impacts to the county, and as you know, our ratio of the pilot, you can probably look it up from when we had the AES agreement. It's not 5%, but it's not much compared to the school and the county. So I think this, in my opinion, balances the scales a little bit of what we could get some revenue for the town, and the town alone.
Exactly, and usually the way that a pilot is split, unless there's an agreement between the taxing jurisdictions, is that it's split in the same proportion as regular property taxes are. So whatever that might be here between the town,
6%.
county, and school. So that would be, that's
6%.
hence the host community agreement.
Right. So it's roughly, what's that, 18,000? Right, 6%, 300,000, like 18,000. So having said that, the thing with a host community agreements also is that you can get money up front, sometimes depending on the partners, or you can get a lot of it up front, or you can stretch it out. Those are the things that we negotiated with the different parties and see where it goes.
Correct.
Take 6% of 300,000, that's what the town would get for the pilot. This is just reality, that's all. So I'm very encouraged, but when you said a host community agreement, it more or less balances the scales of mine.
Thank you.
So, Brown, anything else?
That was all. Thank
Okay, I
you.
think Ruth, Joe?
I actually have one sort of an environmental question. How much noise is produced by this system?
Yeah, so great question. So generally, when you're standing right next to the system, it's about 60 decibels.
Oh.
One of the things that's another attractive aspect of this site is there's really nothing around it. The only nearby structure is the decommissioned coal plant. There's really nothing within several thousand feet. So this will not be audible from any house or other structure.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Well, one thing I'm going to add here, Ruth, is that when you look at where it is on the map, it's in the woods.
Right, no, I know where it is, but.
Well, no,
I
I'm
wondered-
simply saying, I'm not questioning, I'm just simply saying as a buffer,
Yeah, no, I get it.
as a noise buffer. It's not like it's right next to the water, and
Yeah.
and you can hear it. You've tucked it away nicely in the woods. You know, at least part of it in the woods on that.
Yeah, thank you. And it's, to that same point, the visual element of this is really low-key. They're about 12 feet high. You won't be able to see it from anywhere.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm looking at the site plan, and what's underneath the plant right now? You've got it stuck there, but I don't know what's under it. So are there trees there? Is there a ash pit there? What's going on underneath it right now?
So let's see, so the northernmost portion of it, there's basically shrubs back there.
Okay.
That was clear cut in the 90s, so it's basically growth from that point forward.
Okay, thanks. And I'm looking at the next page here, and you're showing shipping containers on site. You realize that our town code doesn't allow that?
Well, I think that that's something that will, depending on how that's applied with the planning board, there's different interpretations of whether these are actually considered to be storage containers, or if they just have some resemblance to that.
What I see here would not be allowed under our zoning code. It's anything that can be put on a truck and looks like a shipping container is not allowed, certainly not in the quantity you want to put there. The next question I have, my understanding is these battery storage sites emit toxic gas from time to time, hydrogen cyanide, carbon monoxide, maybe a dozen other things. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
What I could say is that this is a project that will be subject to seeker review, and involved agencies will include the DEC. It'll include, any review of any impacts to air quality or anything like that. And I'm confident that this, like other projects in the state, will get permitted and receive a negative declaration under that review.
So in other words, yes, it will emit these things, and you think you'll get a permit anyway?
I didn't say that. I said that what I said is that these will not have an environmental impact that is considered to be a negative impact by any of the agencies which are charged with conducting that review.
So yes, it is going to emit toxic chemicals,
I did not say that.
but you said these things will not have an impact.
I said this system.
These systems, okay. The next question I have is how the grid works on this. This line has got something like a 300 megawatt limit, is my understanding. That's its capacity. I don't know how a battery versus an input balances off. If you're put in here, does that preclude another solar system setting up because you're going to be part of the capacity of that line?
So this is a separate system, it's a 200 megawatts.
No, I understand, but there's only so much electricity you can run off of this line, and I'm questioning whether your count, like a solar system would, you can only put up to 300 megawatts on this line, and at that point, you peak out the line's capability. Are you another one of those systems, and so we have to count you as part of the system that's going to be there, and at what rate would you be calibrated at?
Yeah, so, again, it's using the existing substation interconnection, which
I know
was
that.
rated at 500 megawatts.
Okay,
And we're 200 megawatts, so we're obviously smaller than that, but that's the point of the interconnection study. Will
Right.
be studied by the ISO, will be studied by NICEAG. Any impacts that are beyond the current system limitations will be required to be paid for by us.
right, I'm just, there's a limit to these lines, and I'm wondering how you count towards that limit. You can only put so many solar panels on this line, and then the line's full. And are you saying you're 200 megawatts worth of power on this line? And
That is, yes, we would be studied as 200 megawatts of generation capacity.
okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Anything else?
I do actually have one other sort of an environmental issue as well. Is there a cooling system required with this? And if so, would it be affecting the lake at all?
So this is not going to interact with the lake at all. It's an HVAC system, so it's not using water.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Anything else, Ruth?
No, I'm done.
Let's circle back, and I'm sorry, this is almost turning into an interrogation, which I apologize, that's not, I'm just seeking information here. You've worked on other systems like this.
Correct.
And you've gone through, obviously, the seeker process through others. And I'm sure that the seeker process may be similar to what we would have here as the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Having said that, have you ever had a positive deck, or they've all been negative decks?
No, they've all been negative decks
Okay.
on energy storage projects.
No, and there was no declaration that toxic fumes will come out or anything of that nature?
Correct.
Okay. My personal opinion, once again, having met with you, is that we're in the infant stage of an evolution here. If the world really wants to go in this direction, you can't work with what you have already and expect to evolve. You're going to have to either upgrade your systems, you're going to have to get bigger wires, better wires, whatever, because this is all part of the solar factory that's going to happen. You're going to have to store it someplace until we get really genius and do like we did with these. But we're still in the infant stage right now with that. So I think a lot of times I would caution people in general to try to equate, well, this is what we have here, will it work? Because I'm sure that the next thing will be a massive upgrade if you really want to go with these systems. Generate and also store, because until these systems get more efficient so they can do it in the wintertime, you're going to have to store these things at peak hours and hopefully and then use them during the off hours, amongst other things, or God forbid we have brownouts. So I myself am not going to be so finite with things. We'll see where this goes. And if you can give us any information on other systems you've done with that, I think that that history, especially if it's successful, will be, at least for me, valuable information as we go forward. And it might be valuable information also for the planning board, since they're the ones that have the authority over this, not the town board, as was mentioned through John Zepko on that. And I think also for the general public, we try to fill it with as much accurate information as possible, because unfortunately when there's a void, we all go to the worst case scenario. That's just human nature. So far so good. I hope that you still feel welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you for allowing me to just come here and introduce the project. Looking forward to working with the board here and with the town, and I hope we can address any concerns during the site plan approval process.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Onward and upward.
So let's go back, let me see if Debbie can
Would you like me to ask first?
Sure.
Does the rest of the board want to go back and revisit this now?
Sure. If we're ready.
Office, okay.
What exciting times you'll have in 2025, huh? This goes through. The ARC grant's still going through, by the way, so the dark fiber is still moving. The dark fiber, the ARC grant, that's still moving forward. So it wasn't like this was just,
that crossed out, don't install.
so people tend to forget about that part, but there's still that dark fiber cable coming up from Guthrie. And I think it's still.
And where do you want that in here?
Yeah, well, I think you're gonna have a lot of light reading ahead of you.
Where do you want this in here, though?
Are we,
Where do you want this?
should we take a 5-minute break?
It's what?
Should we take a 5-minute break while you guys discuss this?
No, we're done.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
It's your call, Michelle.
just right here.
You have the helm.
Yeah. Yeah, that goes in the first one.
Okay.
Okay, do you want me to read this?
Sure.
Yes, please.
So this is the same, everything on here is the same resolution except for at the bottom where it has now therefore be it resolved. I'll just read this and then I'll add that the proposed phasing and subdivision plat or map as submitted be and hereby is approved, and the town codes enforcement officer be and hereby is authorized to seal and certify such proposed subdivision and lot line maps for filing with or delivery to the county clerk and county assessor's office for approval and filing. And further resolved, the town's code enforcement officer will not sign the plat for this subdivision until the applicant has completed connecting the bus station to buildings located at 36 Village Circle Place and 106 Village Circle with a sidewalk installed per town code section 270-67F. And everything else is just the way it is on the paper. So we need to start over with a new.
I'll move it with the added resolve.
I'll second.
Okay, so Joe, what else there? Joe and Ruth, were you?
Second.
Okay.
So, a couple of questions since we're now in the discussion phase. Is that, how long has this been going on for them to complete the things that were brought up tonight as a concern?
Well, last December, he promised they'd be done by the end of January, for starters.
Okay.
And then this was done,
Let me backtrack. Last December 2022, and they said they'd have them done by January 2023?
yes.
Okay. Keep
You want
going.
to go back? Yeah, take me a second. I don't remember when this was originally added.
That's okay, while you're looking. So Mrs. Munson, can you read the new part again for me, please, as far as what is?
Certainly. Resolved that the town's code enforcement officer will not sign the plat for this subdivision until the applicant has completed connecting the bus station to buildings located at 36 Village Circle Place and 106 Village Circle with a sidewalk installed per town code 270-67F.
Excuse me, that should read Village Circle North. Oh, no, you're right, I'm sorry, right, it's all right. So in answer to your question, Ed, we passed that addition to the PDA on August 18th, 2021.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Munson, you have the helm.
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Ruth Graf,
Yes?
Brian Winlosi,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Okay. That sums that up, that sums that up. Okay, moving forward. We're up to privilege of the floor. And privilege of the floor, this is where I get to read this again for, I'm gonna really miss this. So privilege of the floor, the public shall be allowed to speak only during the public comments / privilege of the floor period of the meeting or during public hearings or when they have reserved and been granted time upon the agenda. Speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer or his or her designee and step to the front of the room. You can use this table right here. Speakers must give their name and state whether they are speaking as a resident, a member of the public, or any other person or for any other person or organization. Speakers must limit their remarks to 3 minutes, and comments unrelated to the subject matter of the public hearing are not allowed. Speakers may not yield any remaining time they may have to another speaker. With the permission of the presiding officer, a board or committee member may interrupt a speaker for the purpose of clarification or information, and not for any other reason or to debate or disagree. Such time shall not be counted toward the speaker's 3-minute limit. All remarks shall be addressed to the board or committee as a body and not to any member thereof, nor to any member of the public, whether present at such public hearing or not. Speakers shall observe the commonly accepted rules of courtesy, decorum, dignity, and good taste. Interested parties or their representatives may address the board by written communications. Written documents and evidence may be submitted as part of the record of the public hearing. Persons who exceed 3 minutes violate rules of courtesy, decorum, dignity, or good taste, or deliberately or by their behavior interfere with other persons' rights to comment or participate in the public hearing, or who deliberately or by their behavior interfere with governmental administration will be cut off, removed, or have non-recognized comments removed from the record, or any combination of the above. Before a comment or statements will be excised from the record, the speaker will be verbally warned that they are in violation of the rules for this public hearing. So, is there anyone that likes to exercise their right of the public, privilege of the floor? Now, if I didn't say that,
I know,
I
right?
got
Like,
like 5 people. Okay.
very intimidating.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on then. Department reports, Lansing Community Library. Andre, do you have anything? Thank you. Anything to add to that?
No,
Okay. Lansing Youth Service?
the same.
There's no report this month.
There's no report.
Just checking
That's
boxes.
because Travis was hurt, and so the program is not.
Yep.
I think a lot in August, we don't get a report from them, I'm not sure.
Could be.
Not sure, but I'm sorry
Okay.
he's hurt.
There's a problem.
Yeah, I'm sorry he's hurt.
Tompkins County Legislative Report, Mike Sigler. Hi, Mike Sigler. Hazel is, if there's any question that she is not your daughter, look at those eyes.
You're lucky. You're lucky I even came tonight. I was like hanging out with her going, do I leave to come? But here I am.
If you make a quick, you can be right back with her.
All right. Well, first, I'm going to start off my report with this thing for Joe. 6:55 p.m. He got back to me. So we are paving this year, Brickyard Road. Joe asked me about Brickyard. We are paving this year. We're moving resources in that direction in the next 2 weeks to begin prep. Paving won't be sooner than late August, early September.
Thank you.
There you go. I try to be helpful. Okay. Thank you again for having me. I do want to recognize Dominic Recchio for his county press releases. I do draw liberally from those. There really isn't much to report this month. It's a nice, little lazy July. We didn't have a meeting earlier this month, but last night we did discuss this one resolution, and it was a lot of discussion. It was a call to close the Seneca Meadows landfill. The measure did fail because it got 7 votes, and it does need 8. Shauna, she was out of town. It's unclear how she's going to vote, so I don't know if the measure will be back or not. I don't think anyone particularly likes the amount of trash that we produce or the reality that we have landfills. I don't think that's really what it was about, but we do produce trash. We do need landfills. Tompkins County is moving. We have this new proposal that you've been hearing about. It's really remarkable how much trash we actually produce. It's something like almost 3 pounds per person a day. It's a lot. And we're hoping to cut that by 2/3. So, but even if we cut it by 2/3, we're still producing 1 pound per person per day. So that's about 50 million pounds per year, if I'm doing the math right. It does have to go someplace. If Seneca closes, I only see a couple alternatives. I mean, you can open your own landfill here in Tompkins. I don't think there's any support for that. That actually did come up at the meeting, which I thought was interesting. You could burn it, like countries like Sweden do. They burn them right near the cities where they're generated, and they do it very cleanly, but I actually don't see a lot of support for that either. Or we could send it to more distant landfills. Right now, we're not sending ours to Seneca Meadows. We send it to, I'm not sure which, but there's Ontario has their own, and there are some smaller ones around. That's all because of the contract we sign and where we send it. So we could send it to Seneca Meadows down the road. You know, we have to send it someplace. If we send it further away, we're going to burn more gas getting it there. The big thing about moving anything, stone or salt, for example, is how far do you have to move it? Why do we get our salt so cheap? Because, well, we produce it right here. So if you got to transport it 20 miles, it's going to be worse. So that was the big discussion. Like I said, it did fail. One of the people called this dense. I thought that was kind of funny, actually. But we'll see where it goes and what people want to do later on. The Tompkins County Tourism Program, this is something that's kind of interesting and could impact a lot of people. It has 3 grant programs running this fall. Community Celebrations, Tourism Advancement, and Tourism Capital Grants. It's a total of about almost $400,000. It's available for the fall cycle for these 3 programs. TompkinsCountyNY.gov/tourism/grants. You can find out more information. You know, if you're looking for a way to celebrate your community's culture, history, and diversity, like we used to do Harbor Fest here, this would qualify for that, and I think we did get money for that at one point. It's $2,500. Pat, I'm looking at you. To apply, you simply go fill out the application form. It's August 31st is the deadline for all of these. If you're looking to attract tourists, there's a whole nother grant for that. You can put in for that. And lastly, there is also a tourism capital grant. So if you want to do some kind of major investment in something that's going to generate more visitors to our area, I don't know, something like a park or something. I don't know. You could probably put in for some money for that. There's not a ton of money, but you know, it's something to get you started. That's really it. I do want to give a shout out. I've never owned a boat, except my dad owned a boat when I was 13, and I bought a boat finally. I'm not bragging. It's a very old boat, 1992 Glastron. Not a fast boat. But the boat when I was a kid was called Chance, and this boat was called Second Chance. So I had to actually buy it. But I went and I launched it at the Lansing, our Lansing, you know, at the park.
Park?
And there are 3 launch bays there, and it was beautiful. It was such an easy experience that we do a great job. So a shout out to Pat and to the town. Nobody yelled at me on the ramp. Nobody told me to move along quicker.
It's not allowed.
It was really just a great experience. We launched it very quickly. It was all nice and concrete. I didn't see a lot of kids like playing on the ramp, which there apparently happens in places. So really just a very nice addition to the town. It was $6 because I'm a resident, so it was pretty good. And I might even buy the $50 pass now. See how many times I can get out there on the water. So, and it really does tell you what a gem. Huh? It's a bargain at 50. It really is.
9 times.
You're not going to get my dockage money yet.
Yeah.
No. But no, really a tremendous thing that, you know, it's hard to believe that it's right there. And it's hard to believe I've lived here 25 years and have not had a boat to this point. So.
Any questions for Mike?
Have fun boating.
Right? Come for a ride. We'll take you out there. We'll take you tubing. And draw on a tube.
The grants you were alluding to, is that from the bed tax?
Say that again?
The grants you were alluding to, is that from the bed tax?
It is. Yeah, it's from the
So,
hotel tax.
Give you some background. They like to have events where people stay over.
They do, but this is, like the community events one is,
I tried for years, and we didn't qualify with the Harbor Fest because they love to have a two-day event, because they want people obviously to stay over because they generate bed tax.
Right.
And that's fine, personally. She was very cordial to me when I talked to her about the different parameters, but that wasn't the
yep.
case.
Two of those are more into that, and but the first one that I read off, they've adjusted it. I think
That's
you
okay.
could
This
actually
was-
get,
This was like 15 years ago. so
I got you.
it hasn't changed.
I remember when you did
The other thing
that.
is that what really concerns me, and this is just me with the environment, is the trash. Where are you gonna put it?
Where
In
are you
the
gonna-
ocean? You're gonna bury it someplace, and then it's gonna, I mean, for years, you can go in the back lots in the woods, you'll find trash dumps.
Mhm.
I mean, in the 60s and 70s, that's exactly where they were. Fort Hill Road was an old dump site.
Right.
In fact, it's a brownfield right now.
Right.
It's one of the places they're looking for solar amongst ours. But what are you gonna do with it? And if Sweden can do this, I'm kind of surprised why America, as brilliant as it likes to think, it can't adapt something like that. Talk about a renewable source. The other thing is that what the Europeans do is that you have a package. Toothpaste, and they're getting more, there's only one package. You don't put it in a box. It's one package, that's it. But this is gonna be a huge, huge problem. The only good news, I'm not gonna be around when the fit hits the sham of this stuff. But I feel bad for it because you're gonna run out of space. You can only make so many ski jumps and so many, anything else you can do. But after a while, I don't think they're addressing this situation. If they can somehow generate this into fuel, however they do that, I think it would be remarkable. And I don't think that they would be enabling people by continuing to, we're not gonna stop producing this junk. And I don't know what the answer is, but there's gotta be some compromise down the road here so they can at least start to do some of this stuff.
I'm going to point out that you've actually encompassed like two movies, as you've been telling. You did Wall-E, so good job on that. And you also did Mr. Fusion
I do
from
my
Back to the
best.
Future. So
Well,
there you have
wait
it.
till you get to Armageddon. That's the next one.
I'll just point out, Ed, that when you burn it, you still have 25% of the volume left that you have to dispose of that's much more toxic than when you started, so it doesn't make it go away.
It's, as of today. As of today, it's 25%. Who's to say, once again, who's to say, 20 years from now, that wasn't around? I'm simply saying, I think we need to think outside the box and stop feeling binary about which party we're in and how we're gonna come to these solutions. And quite frankly, I hope people start thinking outside the box and say, we can solve problems without being politicized about everything.
I will say that there were a couple things that did come out of the discussion that I thought were important. The leachate that does come out of these landfills and how that's treated. Seneca Meadows says it treats for PFAS, which are a forever chemical. They say they do pull those out. So that's interesting because they're a big landfill, right? I don't know if the littler landfills really have that kind of capacity to do that. So sometimes bigger is actually better in this kind of case because you have a bigger company doing it with more resources. I'm not saying that's true all the time, but leachate is interesting, and it's something the county may deal with. Like, we may not allow that to be shipped into the county. Because it gets treated at wastewater treatment, and then if those PFAs are not removed, then it enters into the water system, into the lake system. So that is a concern, and the county's looking at that. Also, where do you spread the material once it's been treated? They used to just put this sludge out onto farm fields. I think that's much less accepted than it ever was before, but certainly something, again, the county could look at and say, that's not a practice.
So
I haven't seen that in a long time, but
So the sludge from the water treatment plant is disposed of, but that is a small amount that gets generated in over 20 years. We just took care of that last year.
Mhm.
But it goes away. But it's got to go somewhere.
right.
Just because it's out of sight doesn't mean it's not still there.
Well, that was the contention of some of my colleagues, too.
So I look forward to your solutions as you continue to work on this, okay?
See what I can do.
Do it for Hazel.
There you
okay?
go. Do it for Hazel. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Have a nice summer, and I'll see you in August.
Yes, happy voting.
Careful, though. Not eventful.
Highway Department, Mikey? You got some new information right off the wires. Don't you?
A little.
A little.
bit. I crunched some numbers. Good evening, everybody. My report's in your packet. Any questions, I'm happy to answer. Something new that came to, well, anyhow. I got it in the mail. It's the CHIPS, EWR, Pave New York, and POP program money that we get from Governor Hochul. Like I do every year, depending on how the money comes in, sometimes I ask the board to front me some money, right? And then it be reimbursed after I do the project and spend the money. So at this point in time, I'm gonna ask the board, not today, but for next month, to front me about $40,000 more to put into our infrastructure and then be reimbursed after we spend it. We get a certain amount, and then, I had some rollover money in there, so basically, with that rollover money, it increased the amount, right? So I kind of under budget every year, and depending on how the money comes in with the rollover and add it up. I kind of do this every year, so.
So this is the new number, so the CHIPS, for people that may be hearing this for the first time, this is money that is reimbursed to us?
Right, I mean, in the simplest, I can break it down in the simplest
No,
terms.
I'm just
So-
asking,
Yeah.
just give me 1 minute. And what it is so the highway department spends it up front, he puts in the paperwork, and then the state reimburses us. So this is not taxpayers' money being towards this is part of the CHIPS program, and he applies for it first, but he has to show usage of it, and they usually give him a limit. And it looks like that limit's been increased just recently, you're aware of, by what, 40,000?
Right, I mean, so I budgeted $480,655.91 in anticipation of what we are going to get from our CHIPS, Pave New York, or Extreme Winter Recovery and POP. This is a program of that the state has to help with the local roads, right? So the total amount we are receiving in from the state is $521,019.76, would be a difference of $40,363.85. Am I asking for an additional $40,000 to then bring us up to close to $512,000 or $521,000 to be reimbursed once the work is done, once everything is set into the state, like it is every single year?
So this is an allocation you're asking for at our next meeting.
At the next meeting, correct.
Any questions for our highway superintendent?
I just want to say whoever was mowing did a really nice job this year, much more neat and orderly up Salmon Creek Road, which is what I walk up and down, so I saw it. They did a nicer job than usual.
Is that Doug? No?
We have two different mowers out. One does a little bit different jobs than the other. It's just the design of the mower.
Mhm. Yeah,
So-
they just, very, very careful getting it up to the point, right up to the crops, but not into the crops, things
Right.
like that. It was a really nice job.
I'll pass it along.
Thanks.
Any other comments or questions for Mike?
I just heard from somebody today who was down at Bell Station, and on the road, on the way down there, there's a small tree down the road. And I said, I can tell Mikey tonight, so
Okay.
that's all. It's passable, but it's, taken up like half the road, part of the way down.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, my
Anything
friend.
else?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Park and Rec. Not that you're busy. I don't know. Even with the poor air quality, you still have a way, huh?
No, mine's gonna be really short.
I think one of those folders is all Pat's vouchers.
Yeah, a little busy. My report is in your packet. If you have any questions, I'm not asking for any money tonight, so we're all good.
Go in peace, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. It's nice we don't have to give out any more money tonight. So, John is not here, but his report is in your packet. And I don't see anything for engineer.
I have a quick question that I would ask John if he was here, but I wonder if anybody else knows where things stand with the Auburn Road property.
Oh, that's a good question.
Okay, which,
The two.
I-
two-
I-
ah, eh.
I'll do my best to
Sure.
answer this question, because that part of it isn't as involved.
Oh, okay, okay.
Sort of are, but I guess I was asked to step in and help.
Oh, okay, then I guess I still have a question for you, sorry.
For the procurement part, right, for the 3 bids?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is gonna be really short,
Uh-huh.
honestly. So, in the simplest terms, our engineer has been out of town,
Okay,
right? So he's, along with Guy, have been helping to take care of this obstacle of procurement.
Right,
So,
right.
hopefully when he returns, which is later this week, or I believe on the 20th, we possibly might have something by next month, he thought, maybe. I know, and I'm kind of looking at Guy for guidance, but at the last we talked about it, it was, he wasn't even close to having it at this month, right? So, you come in late to this, you have a lot to look at,
Yeah.
right? Whatever was done, maybe it wasn't done exactly correct, some of it was, some of it wasn't, so, I think hopefully by the next meeting, maybe we can be close to present something to the board, and, but we're moving forward on
all
it.
right, thanks.
Okay.
Well done. Town clerk report? Deb?
Yes, my report's in the packet. There's not much there, but if you have any questions, but I do have one other thing to bring up, unless anyone has any questions on my report first. Okay. My office has sent out 2 emails in the last, starting June 15th, about getting codification done on the recently adopted local laws. And we asked for some clarification about what you wanted us to do, because it's, to do these 4 local laws, it's going to be between $7,100 and almost $7,400 to do these 4, which is not the typical amount of money that it costs. So since the town board has been saying that we shouldn't be taking items from fund balance, we don't know if this amount was put in anybody's budget line. We don't know if we should just authorize general code to go ahead and do this and create a bill that we don't know how we're gonna pay for. So my office is trying to be cautious about spending this money, but we didn't get feedback from really any of you, so we don't know what to do about it. So we have not sent those local laws in for codification, so.
What is normally what the cost of these are? They seem to be exceptional.
These are exceptional, I think, mostly because 1 or 2 of them had many, many documents that came from it was from
Right.
zoning or code.
I'm sorry, Debbie, I should have explained it differently. What normally is the cost of these? I mean, a normal cost is what, 2,000?
I think in Jesse's somewhere, I thought she said it's normally more like maybe 4,000. This is like double from what it normally is.
Well, that zoning law is pretty large. I would
Yeah.
assume it would cost more than our typical laws. What's the impact of having it codified versus not codified? I'm not understanding. If we don't go through this process, how does that affect the law?
Well, I'm sure Guy can chime in on this, but a few years ago, we paid a substantial amount of money to say we were going to do this. And once they're codified and they're, they're on our web once they're codified. None of that's happened. And
Okay.
so.
I'm just trying to understand what.
Right, I mean, I guess you don't have to, but then why did the board agree to spend all this money a couple of years ago to do this if we're not gonna do it? But is it too much money to spend? And Guy can fill me in, because I don't really have all the answers for sure.
Go ahead.
I'm done.
So let me just chime in for a minute here, is that if you're in, you're in. If you're gonna codify, you're gonna codify. And my personal opinion is that we need to make an adjustment here and prepare ourselves, especially with the zoning, once again, zoning, right? Okay, we do all this work, which is wonderful, and here's the cost of all our work. And once again, personal opinion is you pay. This is 20% of the board talking. But if you're gonna codify, and we went through the whole process, and Guy can back me up on this whole procedure was supposed to be helpful. I think it is. It's just that now when you do these laws, of the zoning laws that haven't been done in 20 years, you're gonna have some catch-up costs.
I'm just-
And that's all part of bringing it up to the 21st century.
I'm
And that's
agreeing
just
with
my-
you.
That's just my 2 cents. You guys can bounce off the other stuff.
I'm just trying to understand what we're getting for our $7,000 and why we're spending it.
Because what, is that about right? It's how
Well,
many pages?
here's the estimate here. This
No, I'm just-
was
no, I
all
wanted-
attached and explained previously, so I don't know if people read it or not, but it tells you exactly what they're gonna do for us.
And when you and I discussed it, it was like, okay, you're in, you're in. It's like, here it is.
So, one thing it does say is that it will analysis of the new legislation and proper placement in the code and removal of repealed or superseded provisions. Which right there, I feel like that is not nothing. That's substantial, beyond just putting numbers and sort of organizing it, like.
So really, they're cleaning it up and saying,
Yeah,
oh,
they're doing
this
some of the
section
cleaning up.
repealed this thing over here that you guys weren't thinking about. Could we have done that and not understood that we repealed a section? I mean, I'm asking Guy to help me with understanding this a little bit better.
Well, that was done. But what someone has to do is take the physical text and merge it into the existing code, make sure it's all correct, and make sure that whatever is posted online as the town's official zoning law is the town's official updated zoning law. So one of the things codification does, besides provide a lot of clarity and access for the public to understand what's going on, is it saves the town, it's like jumping over the dollar to try to save the dime. When you have, let's take, and I have municipalities, villages, and towns that I represent, where if you want to figure out what the subdivision rule is, you start with subdivision law number 2 of 1977, and then go through subdivision law amending number 1 of 78, number 3 of 90, number 4 of 2001, number 5 of 2007, number 700 of 2009. And by the time you get through all 7 laws, you can now determine, is this a minor subdivision? And then the question is, what do they have to submit as a plat reporting? And you go through every single local law, backwards and forwards, and see what's been amended or what hasn't. Codification does away with that. You're hiring a code service to make sure that there's one complete updated set of laws. So you'll notice at the end of every local law that needs codification, some don't, some are just administrative housekeeping stuff like the one you did earlier today. There's a provision at the end that directs that it be codified, so that it becomes part of the town's official code. The local law is still valid, it was still validly adopted. The problem comes with people are going to presume, and I mean people, all people, not just citizens, town staff, town employees, town officers, that when they look at the code, that it's up to date. Applicants, for example, even those that are pretty knowledgeable about stuff, like Yellow Barn Solar, they weren't aware that there was 2 ag zones now, because it's never been codified. It's been passed, but it's never been codified. So in the long run, codification saves money, and I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the town was advised to budget $10,000 to $20,000 a year for code services. That sounds like a lot, but if you look at all of the other expenses of photocopying, providing copies, answering emails and questions from the public, then add up all the staff time that's spent on that, you're probably saving money. And how do you determine whether it's 10 or whether it's 7 or whether it's 17? But you can certainly call the comptroller and ask them, because they happen to be calling me about a different issue. And I just said, hey, by the way, while I got you here.
Yeah. The thing is, always good to have that discussion, because you want to go where the benefit is if you're allowed. And that's why we try to separate from the different districts and the different taxing entities where that benefit is and who pays for it.
So it looks like we had 24,000 in that line. Is the question that we've spent it?
Well, for the technology, I mean, that budget gets,
Hammered.
it's hammered
And
all
I'm
the
pretty
time.
sure we
Got
just,
it.
we just cooked another switch in the clerk's office.
Okay then.
Just had it,
And
we
we
just
have a
had it.
budget mod in there already
Okay,
this month.
okay, okay.
Because of firewall issues, this, you know, things that come up.
Yep.
That's a good
So,
discussion to
and I
have.
don't think anything,
I'm sorry.
So
I don't think
you're getting
anything was considered about the codifications
Okay.
at all, like when that was doing, how.
Yeah, I didn't have any.
Right, so we should be sure next year to just be ahead of that and put that in that line. But the question is, how do we make up for it this year now? Yep.
Well, part of it is also that we let 4 laws stack up. Like, we didn't knock them down one at a time.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Is it cheaper to do that, or is it cheaper to run them through one at a time?
No, but you don't see a number like 7,000 if you do them one at a time.
Yeah, you do 25.
You see your more normal numbers, like 1 to 2 or 3.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I think we normally send them in, our office, I think normally sends them in twice a year maybe, or something like that. I think that's what Jessie takes care of this. I think that's what she's worked out with general code.
Okay, what do you need, Debbie, from us in order to move forward on
I
that?
just need to know that you want us to send this in and spend the money, and where's the money coming from?
My 20% says yes.
Okay, so
But there
we're
was a
just
second.
taking it out of
That
fund
was the second
balance?
question.
That was the first
Okay.
question. The second was,
There's no
And-
money there.
Well, then,
And
yeah.
where's that
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
from?
we'll have to put it in there next month.
I'm also on the yes, but I don't have the second one answered.
Right, so we were just trying to get approval so that next
Yeah.
month, when there's this
Yeah.
$7,500 budget mod coming out of fund balance.
Right, we aren't saying, what
That
did you
people
do?
aren't
What did you
saying,
do?
what in the world were you thinking? That's really what we're trying to get approval before we spend the money, instead of.
You're like Mike, you're not being
Appreciate it.
proactive.
Yeah,
And I really appreciate that.
So we'll go ahead and do it, and as long as you're okay with it, I think it needs to come out of fund balance, right? Because there's no
Just
money
has to,
left in
yeah.
tax.
Yeah, it's too early in the year to be moving money from any other accounts.
I was going to say, I don't see any of these department heads saying, you can take it out of my budget.
Well, it's coming out of. Okay, we'll do it.
Anything else? Mr. Munson?
No, I think that's quite enough, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
It's not listed here, but we need to have a bit of a discussion here, and we can go into executive session or closed session if you want to add some details. Andra, myself, Jen, one of our bookkeepers, and also actually an informational aide that's in my office, and Mary Ellen, we've been bank shopping. And once again, here's 20% of the board. We went to 3 different banks, and my personal opinion is I would lean heavily on the recommendation of Mary Ellen and Jen, since they're working with the system on this. Now, 2 of the banks I do banking with, I mean, it's almost impossible not to. You know what I'm saying? Unless you want to get somebody from Mars down here who has no affiliation with anything, you're going to have that. Well, that's not the case. What the case is that we went with the trust company because they are the ones that we have some of the money with. We went with Hugo Lake National Bank because that's where we have some of the money with. And the third one was the community bank. And it looked like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it looked like we can move some of this money into a floating account with one bank, with another bank, for the same amount of rate. We can only lock in part of that money in a CD. And I'd rather have the flexibility of moving it, because once again, this business is where else do you get all your revenue, usually at the first of the year. It's unique, right? And we also saw the success that that Debbie Munson's had in her office, how much is generated. And you can look at the funds and everything, and there's some substantial money. There's 2 or 3 that are 7 figures. And for us to get 5% on that, just do the math, right? You know, I mean, 5% of $1 million, what's that, 50 grand?
And we have 2 of the banks that we would come close to that.
Well, why don't we discuss it in executive session so we can, or closed session, so we can
Well-
discuss negotiating which one we use and why.
Well, first of all, let's see if we can do that, right?
I was gonna
Can we
say,
do
is
that
this really
in-
for closed session?
In executive session, or is it
In
something
executive?
that?
Well, it wouldn't be subject to executive session if there was, confidential advice from counsel that you needed, then you could go into closed section. But executive session contract exception is for securities and real estate where the price or terms of the deal might be impacted by public disclosure. Not every contract is eligible for executive section. In fact, very few are.
Okay, then let's see what the numbers are.
So we could go into closed session for advice to see what the procedure is, even though,
Well, if these are public numbers, of here's what they're offering everybody, then it's public numbers, and let's just put them on the table and see what everyone's offering.
so one of the things is that Hugo Lake National Bank is one of the banks that's listed in our organization,
That's correct.
along with the Docklands Trust, those are
Yes,
two.
that's correct.
And I know Jen's not here tonight, but Mary Ellen, do you feel comfortable making a recommendation?
Yeah. I would recommend Hugo Lake.
I didn't hear you.
I would recommend Hugo Lake.
Okay,
All right.
for
Yeah,
what?
Why? Their
For
rates
what?
are much better.
For what? What would you recommend we do with?
Oh, to move all of our accounts. I move all our accounts, all our bank accounts. We can earn much better rates, interest rates on our accounts there. I don't know why we would have, we can certainly keep something open at the trust company if we need to, we want to. And I would for a little while anyway. It was something like a water account where we have money coming in from the state, until we are sure everything has been transferred in wires and ACHs and things have been appropriately, they work and that's all checked out, but, yeah.
Guy, if this is in our organizational minutes that we can bank with either of these, does the board have to make this approval, or can staff and supervisor just do it?
Within the scope of the organizational resolutions and whatever policies you have relative to investment policies, normally the authority is delegated to the supervisor to make the determination on where to make deposits, just like in bonds. If the town has a unique resolution that says that board approval is required, then normally you have to go that direction. I believe the town has a general investment policy that delegates that responsibility to the supervisor. And part of the organizational minutes is to say what banks the town has approved for that use. So my take on it would be, unless there's something unusual here, as long as the funds are staying at an approved bank, you should be moving them to get the highest return, because you're simply the trustees of that fund, not the owners.
So a lot of this is more of a courtesy. It's also information, because I want to elaborate on this, but if it's one of those, I would leave it up to the discretion of you to see. And there's some that you want to keep maybe another bank because you got money coming in back and forth, easier to transfer. But I also want to expand this comment a little bit in that we're going to come into $15 million here soon with the bond. And if you're doing 5% of 15 million, that's going to be $750,000 coming in. And if your debt service for the first year, which has been projected, subject to change, is around $900,000, it would be nice to take that interest and take some of the burden off of your taxpayers for the first year. But how we do that, I'm planting seeds now, because when this bond comes next year, hopefully you in one capacity or the other, and whether he's supervisor or you're supervisor, whatever, you'll be set in place along working with our bookkeeper how to move that money in. Now, granted, that $15 million is not going to stay there forever, right? It's going to get bled down. But the other thing is you got a host community agreement coming, which may be front-loaded from maybe, we'll see, subject to change, from Yellow Barn. You also another year or two down the road, probably in 25, 26, have another one coming, maybe from the battery storage. Not to mention another one, maybe I hear there's another solar company up north, and mentioning there's also one that is along the lake that may happen. But when you get these big pots of money, I hope that the future boards will try to take some of the burden off the taxpayers with that money, and especially, and I'll plant the seed, fund balance, right? Get the fund balances up to where they should be, and then you can play with the numbers a little bit, but like I said, tap the brakes on the bleeding, so to speak. I'll leave it at that. But if we can move the money with, I mean, if I don't need board approval, like I said, I like to have full disclosure, here it is. So that also it's a teachable moment for somebody coming through, because when you look at this thing, it's a nightmare on trying to figure out, you can have this, or he can have this, whoever wins, where this goes from here, and what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. And I remember when Guy said, Ed, go ahead and do this, and go in peace, my brother, and here we are. And it's like, you can't use Edward Jones, you can't use Charles Schwab, you can't use any of these, so. Make a long story, thank God the doors are open, I almost sucked all the air out. So I guess we're okay moving forward?
I'm just checking with Guy to make sure that we're following the proper procedure.
Yeah, I mean, it'd been nice if I'd known this question was coming, because then I could verify this is the most current cash management policy. I believe you're gonna say it is, because that's what the purpose of your policy book is. And what this says is that the town has a cash management investment policy, specifies the purposes, i.e. minimize risk, to ensure the investments mature, to ensure that the accounts are securitized, and the state comptroller, there's a whole lot of rules for that. This is consistent with New York state law. It's also consistent with what I recall from prior readings of the town's cash policy, that the town only wants its accounts secured with government securities and not private securities, because the private securities take a discount rate in terms of how they're calculated. But it says exactly what I thought it would say, and that is that in accordance with this policy, the supervisor and/or fiscal officer of the town is hereby authorized to invest all funds, including proceeds of obligations and reserve funds, in CDs, time deposit accounts, obligations to the state, obligations of the U.S., or any of the above. And basically, then it explains how it has to be collateralized, the written agreements with the bank. The town can designate custodial banks from time to time, which we do in our organizational resolution. Then there's some audit and general stuff to comply with comptroller rules and make sure that banks have stuff that's available for audits, which is in your banking agreement. And then there's a fund balance policy, which would be, you'd have to check to make sure which funds are allowed to be put in those accounts, but I'm going to tell you, my guess is it's all of them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just did a review of new fund balancing for a municipality in Cuyahoga County, and it basically is structured the same way.
So, a little bit more. It looks like, the Fed keeps going up, 50 basis points, 0.5%, 25 basis points, 0.25%. It looks like it's leveling off. In fact, the scuttlebutt things actually is going to start dropping a little bit. Might be perfect timing for the bond for the highway department. Talking to Jeff Smith from Municipal Solutions, they just did one for 3.12, which is, and there's usually a 3 to 6 month ripple before it hits locally. And with the election next year, I don't see a lot of rates going up very high as far as that goes. So you guys probably are in a great position. I say you guys because you should be here one of the best. Nothing that's without the three amigos as we scoot. But you're going to be in a good position, I think, to really take care of the town in a good way. But
I agree.
anyways, Jeff Smith is a great source, by the way. Not the Jeff Smith from the county, but he's also a great source. He's the county highway department supervisor or superintendent, but this Jeff Smith from Municipal Solutions. All right, so we got our answer. We'll keep evolving what our other situations are here with the money. But $1 million is $50,000 at 5%.
Can I ask Guy a quick question?
Yep.
Having-
Yes, on alternating through Tuesdays after a full moon.
Okay.
Permanent.
Having just read that, should we be revising that since it hasn't been revised in about 20 years?
Yes, a compliance review would make sense. You may not actually be changing a lot because not a lot has changed except in some of the formulas for how an account has to be securitized and some of the recommendations for bifurcating because of changing FDIC levels and not all lending institutions that qualify as holders of public funds have the same level of insurance coverage through the federal government. Credit unions have a different rate than banks have a different rate than state chartered banks. And so there's some new guidance out there, but a compliance check on the policy would make sense.
Who would be best to do that? I know it's not me.
Frankly, I would do exactly what Ed just suggested, and that is I would ask Municipal Solutions to take a look at it and make recommendations. And then you could go through and within the options that they give you, you could bump this up, you could bump this down, then start maybe doing a local review. But they do this stuff, they actually drafted the policy for the municipality in Cuyahoga County. And then that town or village asked me to review it and just double check it, make sure it was okay. I was like, they know this stuff better than I do. I'm sure it is, but I'll check. And it was.
Given that it dates from August 10th, 1990,
Yeah.
I think something might have changed.
Well,
Not a
Not
lot.
as much as you think, because it's always been, there's always been a requirement that you really heavily securitize public money. It can't be at risk to the market.
Well, this is cash management and investment, and we're now taking credit cards, so I'm sure that's not worked into this and things like that. So I think the policy needs to be updated for that reason alone.
Well, there is a credit card policy, but having one integrated spot might be a better solution.
Yeah.
I'm gonna probably tweak it, but when I did this research 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we were getting 0.4, and we were happy with that. By 4 years, I mean, it's pretty rigid, which you can and cannot do, but this is, I agree with you, it'd be a good time to now, let's just take a peek. You may have to tweak a few things,
Mhm.
but the state government is pretty rigid on what you can and cannot do, and it won't. I mean, like I said, that's just the way it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, the state level for what you're allowed to charge for a bad check fee is well under market and well below what your actual cost is, but you are precluded from charging more as a municipality. So a lot of it really hasn't changed as much as you think at the state level, but yeah, if the policy's 30 years old, it probably needs a look.
So I saw you jotted down. Are you going to ask? Thank you.
I'll take care of it.
Thank you.
I would also make sure that the bank we choose has the insurance and the coverage for large, I mean, you're talking $7 million or that amount, so that the taxpayers are protected.
Mhm.
And being that, I mean, the trust company has their rules, right?
They have, the accounts for the town at the trust company, because I did review that contract a few years back, are 100% secured with U.S. government treasury bonds.
And this will be the question we'll ask if we deviate from there to see, okay, we don't want to end up like the bank out west, right?
Mhm. Well, my understanding is the way the trust company is interpreting that is $250,000 is guaranteed by the feds, and the rest they have covered by, so it's not 100%, it's 100% minus
It's
250.
100% secured,
Yeah,
because the 250,000
One way or
comes
the
from
other.
federal
yeah,
security.
yes, different security.
Okay,
Right.
so let me do some research on that. Are we good?
Yes.
So far?
Thank you.
We did ask about that, we were like,
Yeah.
and I'm confident, but they did say, it's a large sum of money that we would be moving, that they have a heads up so they can, make sure that they can have it all covered. So, just to be, just to put you at ease, it's nothing that's gonna be like, oh, yeah, tomorrow I'm gonna move all the money over there. Right, there's planning involved.
Alex, you want to comment on the bookkeeper's report or anything? You're all good? Okay, Jen seems you're working out really well?
Yeah, really well.
Yeah, that's a very strong team you have there. All right, Mrs. Munson, I need you to navigate through here. We're in the consent agendas, right?
I believe we finally got in there, yes. That would be great. Let's see.
I'm gonna miss that.
Okay, we only have,
3?
1, 2, 3. Yes, we only have 3. We only have 2. One's just a resolution to approve, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could have a resolution to have a resolution to approve it. That way everyone gets one, if that's what you
Yeah,
want.
so there's just the 2 that need to be read and then somebody to make a motion.
All
So
right, you have the helm. Guys, through it.
Okay. A, resolution approving hiring of a seasonal Lansing Highway Department employee.
Andrea?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
B, resolution updating organizational resolution number 23-22, establishing standard hours for determination of retirement benefits to include code enforcement officer training.
Okay, so C is if someone wanted to,
we just need to have
You just-
somebody make
I'll
the
move it.
motion. Thank
I'll
you.
second it.
Thank you.
thank you, Mrs. Munson.
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Ruth Groff?
Yes.
Bronwyn Losi?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes,
Edward Levine?
Yes. Item 12, motions and resolutions. Motion authorizing town supervisor to write and send letter to Governor Hochul to save nonprofit auto insurance.
I will move that one.
I'll second it.
Okay. This is the only, I don't mind doing this, by the way. Let's get it up front. Would a resolution be strong enough? Would a resolution and a letter of support, I mean, a resolution is supported.
Right.
And I'm not getting out of it because it's just a matter of cutting and pasting and doing all the other stuff. But is a letter necessary?
Yes, I think the problem is it's sitting on the governor's desk, and the longer it sits on the governor's desk, the longer car share is unable to operate. And so the whole point of this is to nudge her and say, look, other communities next to, Ithaca are affected by this, we care, and to try to nudge her into actually passing this.
And the issue is that once she signs it, there's a 6-month waiting period, so it's even longer for them to wait. So the sooner she gets it signed, the better.
So why is she waiting to sign it?
I don't know.
She's not, I mean, obviously Lansing, I mean, we are great nudgers, but still.
I don't know if we're going to be the defining.
This is,
Yeah.
but, if that's what people want to do, I'll work on it. It won't be done probably for a few weeks, if that's okay.
Well, if you look right in here, Ed, not to interrupt, but I
Yeah,
guess I
no.
just did, sorry.
I see it.
But, oh well.
The letter is all done,
Yeah.
There's a ton of there.
Yeah.
completely written out.
Well, I'm looking at the page 19.
Page
If
23.
you keep going through, that's just
21.
the justification for doing it.
He does have to put his name in there.
He
Yeah,
does.
you have to put your name on it. That's,
Well, you
Well,
need to
his
put a
name
le-
is typed down there, he
You need to-
just needs to sign it. I'm just saying,
you're just moving things.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's page 23, you've actually done it for
Yeah,
him.
that's the
kudos
thing.
to Ruth, she took care of all of this.
Thank
It
you.
just needs to go on letterhead.
Needs to have letterhead, and then I need to sign it, or you have to stamp for my signature. If I'm not
Yeah.
available. So we can talk about this tomorrow.
Yep,
And like I said, you have my stamp to do that.
yeah.
And I'll look it over one more time and put it on letterhead, we'll go from there.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Okay, well,
So we need to.
We need to vote on
we
it.
didn't vote.
I'm just tying up loose ends, Mrs. Munson, so go ahead, no more further discussion.
Okay, so, I just want to double check. Ruth, you made the motion?
I did.
And Joe, you did the second?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
All right, that would be, now we're on 12B.
Yep.
Resolution for State Environmental Quality Review Declaration of Lead Agency and scheduling public hearing for 39 Village Solar's subdivision with Sunny's Homes. So who wants to make the motion? Or
Hey,
does it-
Ted, excuse me. You would, Mark Russell Ross would really like you to call him,
Well, this is the other village.
well, I think there is some confusion because I think he was supposed to be number 6 according to him.
I told him in the.
No, I'm on the agenda.
I know, and I told him before, he was item 12B. That's what,
Should we take a 5-minute break?
Oh, we can call him right now.
Who would like you to call him? His phone number is 315 569 0642.
You want to take a 5-minute, like you said, you want to take a 5-minute break?
Let's take a 5-minute
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.